She lied about losing everything in a fake scam to hide her affair with my best friend, then sued me for half our $1 $2 million house and $200, $0 in savings. Now I'm fighting to keep what's mine. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a liar and a cheat. Honestly, I always believed we had a good thing going, two people building a life, working hard, enjoying the good times and trying to ignore the little cracks that started to show. But the cracks turned into gaping holes faster than I could keep up. The first sign was small at first. Lisa started coming home later than usual, saying she was working late or meeting up with friends. I didn't think much of it at the time. She's always been a little bitchy, quick to snap if I asked too many questions, so I let it slide. She'd brush me off with a sarcastic remark or a fake smile, telling me I was paranoid or overthinking. But then I noticed her phone was more secretive. She'd hide it whenever I came near, and her texts were suddenly more flirtatious with a few people I didn't recognize. One day, I caught her in a lie about where she was the night before. She said she was at a friend's birthday party, but I found out she'd actually been with her boss, Mark, and some guy named Ryan, who I later learned was her affair partner. That was the moment I saw the truth in her eyes when she tried to deny it. She looked at me like I was an idiot, like I was supposed to just accept her bullshit. The way she lied, her tone, the way she avoided eye contact, it was all so obvious and it cut me deep. I started digging, of course. I looked through her phone, her social media accounts. That's when I found the messages. Explicit, flirty, downright disgusting exchanges between her and Ryan. They'd been sleeping together for months, I'm pretty sure. I found pictures of her in his bed, texts about their sexcapades, even plans for him to come over again that weekend. She'd been lying to my face, pretending everything was perfect, while she was sneaking around with my best friend. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt sick, angry, hurt, confused. How could she do this? How could she betray me, ruin everything we built just for some stupid sex? And the worst part, she'd lied about losing everything in some fake scam to cover her tracks. She spun this whole story about how she'd been scammed out of our savings, how she'd lost our house, how she'd been desperate and vulnerable. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, that she was hiding something bigger, her affair, her lies, her betrayal. I confronted her that night. I told her I knew everything. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She got defensive, called me crazy, said I was imagining things, that I didn't understand her, that I was overreacting because I was insecure. She accused me of snooping, of ruining her life, of being paranoid. She even had the nerve to say that I was the one cheating on her, that I was jealous and insecure because I couldn't handle her success and beauty. That's when I realized she'd been playing me all along, spinning her web of lies and betrayal, and I was just the fool who didn't see it coming. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. I went from shock and anger to sadness and despair in a matter of hours. I couldn't believe I'd been living with a woman who lied so easily, who cheated with my best friend, who was capable of destroying everything for sex and some fleeting thrill. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly, I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. But I also felt a fierce need for justice. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to decide what to do next, how to fight back, and how to reclaim what was mine. My house, my savings, my dignity. That's when I started planning. I knew I had to be smart. Lisa was a bitch about money. She'd blow through our savings like it was nothing, spend on clothes, trips, whatever she wanted. But I kept our finances separate, and I had built up some real equity in that house. $1 $2 million worth, to be exact, plus about $200, $0 in savings. I wasn't about to let her take it all just because she lied and cheated. I decided I'd fight for what's mine, for the house, for the money we worked so hard for. It was clear I couldn't trust her anymore. She lied about everything, her job, her plans, her feelings. I realized I had to get ahead of her, figure out how to protect my assets, what legal options I had. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering evidence and preparing for the worst. I knew she'd try to twist things, spin some story about how she was the victim, how she'd been manipulated. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. Not after what she did to me, to our marriage, to my trust. As I sit here writing this, I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I also feel a strange sense of clarity. I know what I need to do. I need to fight for my rights, for my house, for the money I earned. And I need to make sure she doesn't get away with her lies and her cheating. That's the only way I can move forward, and honestly, I don't see any other choice. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about respect, dignity, and making her pay for what she's done. After I found out about Lisa's affair and her lies, everything changed. I knew she was a bitch, but this was next level. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneaking around, the texts, the pictures, her lying to my face. It was like my whole world had been turned upside down and I was just trying to hold on to the pieces. I knew I had to act fast. I started by digging into our finances more thoroughly. I had always kept our money separate. She was reckless with her spending, but I was cautious. Our house, worth about $2 million, was paid off, and we had around $200 in savings. I knew Lisa's story about losing everything in some scam was a lie. She'd spun that story to hide her affair, I was sure of it. So I hired a lawyer, figuring I needed to protect my assets. I wanted to see what my options were if I decided to divorce or fight for my share of the house. At the same time, I started gathering evidence. Screenshots of her texts, copies of bank statements, anything I could use to prove what she'd been doing. I didn't trust her, to be honest, not after all. The lies. I also reached out to a private investigator just to be sure I wasn't missing anything. Turns out, Lisa's story about her scam was pure fiction. She'd been secretly funneling money to Ryan, her affair partner, and even used some of our savings to fund their secret meetups. That was the last straw. I had the proof now, and I knew I could fight her in court if it came to that. One of the hardest parts was confronting her again. I did it in a calm, controlled way, no yelling, no screaming. I wanted her to see I was serious. I told her I knew everything, that I had the evidence, and that I was going to protect what's mine. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She got defensive, called me paranoid, said I was crazy to think she'd cheat and steal from me. She even had the nerve to accuse me of cheating on her, which made me laugh bitterly. I told her she was the one cheating on me, on our marriage, on everything we stood for. That's when she started throwing insults, saying I was just jealous of her success, that I was insecure, that I didn't deserve. That was her way of trying to gaslight me again, but I refused to fall for it. Emotionally, I was wrecked. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How could she do this? How could she lie about losing everything and then turn around and cheat with my best friend? The pain of knowing she'd betrayed me so thoroughly cut deep. I started questioning everything, our entire relationship, my own judgment, what I did wrong. But eventually, I realized I couldn't dwell on the past. I had to focus on the future, on protecting what's mine. I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her walk away with half of everything, especially not after what she'd done. I knew she'd try to spin some story about her being the victim, about how I was controlling or jealous. But I was prepared for that. I had all the evidence, and I was ready to fight for my share of the house and the money we'd worked for. I also started looking into legal options: divorce, property division, maybe even a restraining order if she got aggressive. I wanted to make sure I had all my bases covered. The next step was talking to a lawyer. I wanted to understand what I could do to protect my assets. I told her about Lisa's lies, her affair, the fake scam story, and the evidence I'd gathered. She advised me to file for divorce and to prepare for a tough fight. Lisa was going to claim she was the victim, that she'd been manipulated, but I knew better. I had the proof of her affair, her lies about the scam, and her reckless spending. I was determined to keep what was mine: my house, my savings, everything I'd earned. In the meantime, Lisa kept playing her games. She tried to act innocent, acting like she was the wronged wife, the victim of my paranoia. She would cry, scream, call me names, anything to distract from the truth. But I wasn't buying it. I knew her game now. I knew she was a liar and a cheat, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I was ready to fight her in court, to make sure she didn't take my house or my savings just because she was bored or looking for some excitement. Honestly, I feel a strange mix of anger and relief now. Anger because she betrayed me so badly, and relief because I finally see her for what she is. I realize I've been blind for too long, but now I'm seeing clearly. I've got a plan and I'm going to stick to it. I don't care if she tries to spin her lies or manipulate the situation. I know the truth, and I know what I deserve. The fight is just beginning, but I'm ready. I refuse to let her ruin everything I've worked for: my house, my savings, my dignity. This isn't just about money, it's about respect, and I'm determined to get it back. Once I had all my evidence lined up and my lawyer on speed dial, I started to realize just how deep Lisa's lies went. She had spun her story about losing everything in some scam, but I could see through it now. She'd been hiding her affair with Ryan for months, probably even longer. The more I dug, the clearer it became. She'd used me, lied to me, and then tried to cover it all up with her fake sob story. I remember the day I sat down with my lawyer, Lisa's face still trying to act innocent, her eyes darting around like she was planning her next move. My lawyer was thorough, asking all the right questions. We went through the financial documents, the texts, the pictures. I showed her everything I had. She nodded slowly, then said, "Based on what I see, Lisa's claims about losing the house and savings are entirely false. There's clear evidence of intentional deception, and that could be grounds for contesting her claims in court." That was a huge relief. It meant I wasn't just fighting an emotional battle. I was fighting a legal one, and I had the evidence to back me up. My lawyer advised me to prepare for a possible divorce and to start the process of asset protection immediately. I knew Lisa would try to manipulate the situation, claim she was the victim, and spin her web of lies even more. But I wasn't about to let her. I'd seen her true face now, and I knew I had to act fast. I also started looking into the possibility of a settlement. I didn't want a long, drawn-out court battle if I could avoid it, but I was prepared for a fight. I knew her. Ego was fragile, and she'd try to make me out to be the bad guy. That's why I kept meticulous records of everything, every text, every bank statement, every conversation. I wanted her to see that I wasn't bluffing. I wanted her to understand that I was serious about protecting what's mine. At the same time, I started to feel a strange sense of clarity. I realized that Lisa's entire persona was built around lying and manipulation. She'd always been a little bitchy, yes, but her capacity for deceit was shocking. She lied about her job, about her friends, about her plans, all to cover her tracks. And her affair with Ryan, that was the icing on the cake. She'd betrayed me, my best friend, and everything we'd worked for. I started to see her as a different person, someone selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own pleasure. I also had to confront the reality of our financial situation. I'd worked my ass off to build that house and save that money. It was our joint effort, but I was the one who put in the hours, the sweat, the sacrifice. I wasn't about to let her take half of it just because she decided to cheat and lie her way through our marriage. I knew I'd have to fight for my rights in court, and I was ready. I made a list of everything I wanted: full custody of the house, my savings intact, and no way was I giving her a penny more than what the law dictated. Lisa, of course, didn't take the news well. She started to panic. She begged, cried, even accused me of trying to ruin her life. She claimed she was the victim, that she'd been manipulated, that I was just jealous of her success and beauty. She threw tantrums, called me controlling, said I was just insecure because she was better looking and more successful. But I saw through her lies now. I knew she was just trying to distract me from the real issue, that she'd been screwing around behind my back and then lying to cover it up. My emotional state was all over the place. One minute I was furious, the next I was numb. I felt betrayed on every level: trust, love, respect. But I also felt something else: determination. I knew I had to be smart, patient, and relentless if I wanted to win this fight. Because Lisa wasn't going down without a fight, and I knew she'd try every trick in the book to keep what she wanted: our house, the money, me. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I'd worked too hard and I deserved better. So I kept gathering evidence, kept talking to my lawyer, and kept preparing myself for what was coming. I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice, about making her face the consequences of her betrayal. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, but now I saw her true face, and I was ready to fight for what's mine. I had to. Because if I didn't, she'd walk all over me, take everything I'd built, and leave me a shell of the man I was. That's not happening, not this time. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, legal calls, and endless sleepless nights. Lisa's reaction to all this was predictable. She flipped out, played the victim, and tried to gaslight me at every turn. She'd call me controlling, insecure, jealous, anything to shift the focus away from her betrayal. But I knew better now. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who thought she could lie her way out of everything. She started to change her tactics. First, she tried to spin a new story, claiming she lost everything because I was abusive, controlling, and just too jealous to let her breathe. She told her friends I was a monster, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. I knew it was all lies. I kept my cool, let her rant, and gathered more evidence. I recorded some of her calls just in case. I wanted to make sure I had everything documented. I wasn't planning to let her manipulate her way out of this without consequences. Meanwhile, I was also preparing for the legal fight. I filed for divorce, citing her infidelity and financial deception as grounds. I asked for full custody of the house, my savings, and a fair division of assets, nothing less. I knew Lisa would try to claim she was the victim, that I was trying to control her, but I had the proof of her affair, her lies about losing everything, and her reckless spending. I was confident I could win in court, but I also knew she'd fight dirty. She did, of course. She hired her own lawyer, and suddenly the tone of everything shifted. Now it was all about protecting her rights, emotional distress, and defamation. She even sued me for half the house and the savings, $600, she claimed, trying to make me look like the bad guy. Her lawyer spun stories about how I was controlling, manipulative, and abusive, things I knew weren't true. I felt a mix of rage and frustration. How could she do this? How could she turn everything upside down just to save her own skin? I started to realize just how far she was willing to go. She wasn't just after the house or the money, she wanted to destroy me emotionally, to break me down so I'd give her what she wanted. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I had nothing to hide, and I had the truth on my side. I kept my calm, kept collecting evidence, and prepared for the fight of my life. One night, I found out she'd been secretly talking to her mother, trying to get her to intervene, to convince me to drop the case. I overheard a few of their calls, Lisa crying, saying I was ruining her life, that I was a terrible husband, that she was the real victim here. It made me sick. I knew she was desperately trying to manipulate everyone around her, just like she'd manipulated me. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to stay strong, stay focused, and keep fighting. I realized that Lisa's entire universe revolved around lies, manipulation, and self-interest. She lied about her job, her friends, her finances, and her feelings. Now she was trying to use the legal system to her advantage, to take everything I had worked for. But I wasn't going to let her. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I had the moral high ground. I was determined to keep what was mine, my house, my savings, my dignity. The emotional toll was heavy. Sometimes I'd sit alone, staring at the walls, wondering how I let it get this far. How I was blind to her true nature all these years. But then I'd remember the lies, the betrayal, the way she cheated with my best friend. I'd remember the nights I stayed up, the mornings I woke up feeling sick, the sense of loss I'd carried. And I'd tell myself, enough. It's time to fight for what's rightfully mine. It's time to stand up and be the man I know I am. Every day now feels like a battle, but I've come to accept that this is my fight and I won't back down. I know Lisa will keep trying to manipulate, lie, and spin her web of deception. But I have the truth and I have the evidence. The legal process is slow, but I'm patient. I've learned a lot about myself, about resilience, about standing firm against betrayal. I'm not just fighting for a house or money. I'm fighting to reclaim my life from someone who tried to destroy it. And I won't let her win. As the legal battle dragged on, I started to see just how deep Lisa's willingness to lie and manipulate went. She wasn't just trying to keep the house or the money. She was trying to destroy my reputation, make me look like the villain in her web of lies. I knew her game now. She'd twist every fact, spin stories, and play the victim to anyone who would listen. Her lawyer was good, but I had the advantage of knowing the truth. One day I caught her in another lie. She told her friends I was abusive, that I'd hit her once or twice, and that I was controlling her every move. I had proof from some of her own texts where she admitted she was the one cheating and lying. I showed this to my lawyer and she just shook her head. She's trying to paint herself as the victim, but her own words betray her. That was a turning point. It made me realize that no matter how much she tried to spin her story, the truth was on my side. Lisa's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss some of my claims, trying to weaken my case. But I was prepared. I had everything documented, every lie, every financial transaction, every message. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace her spending, which revealed she'd been funneling money to Ryan and even borrowing from friends to keep up her act. That was the nail in the coffin. It proved she'd been reckless with our money, lying about losing everything, when in fact she'd been secretly funding her affair. Meanwhile, Lisa's emotional tactics grew more desperate. She began sending me long, manipulative texts, crying about how much she loved me, how she'd made mistakes, and how I was ruining her life. I ignored most of them, knowing they were just her way of trying to sway me or get sympathy. I'd learned that her tears were fake, her words carefully calculated to make me feel guilty, but I refused to fall for it. I had already seen her for what she was, a liar and a cheat. The court hearings were intense. I sat there, listening as her lawyer tried to discredit everything I presented. But I had the evidence and I knew the law. I knew I had a strong case for full custody of the house and the assets. I also filed for a protective order, just in case she tried to escalate her manipulations. I was prepared for her to go low, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wanted to end this fight with integrity, even if she was doing her best to drag me into her chaos. Throughout it all, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. Exhaustion because this ordeal had drained every ounce of energy I had, but relief because I was finally taking control. I was no longer in the dark, blindly trusting her. I saw her for what she was, someone who lied, cheated, and manipulated her way through life. And I was determined not to be her victim anymore. I decided I'd fight until the end, for my house, my savings, and my dignity. I knew I deserved better than this chaos she dragged me into. Every day, I reminded myself of what I was fighting for. Not just the physical assets, but my reputation, my sanity, my future. Lisa had tried to destroy everything I built, but I was stronger than her lies. I'd put everything on the line, not just for the money, but for my own peace of mind. I'd learned the hard way that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who your real friends are and what you're truly capable of when you refuse to back down. This isn't over yet, but I know I'm on the right path. I've got everything I need to win this fight: proof, patience, and a clear mind. Lisa's web of lies is unraveling, and I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I won't let her take what's mine, and I won't let her destroy me. I'm ready for whatever comes next because I know I've done everything I can to stand tall, even after everything she threw at me. It's about justice now, and I'm determined to get it. The final stretch of this ordeal has been the most exhausting but also the most revealing. After months of fighting, I finally saw the tide turn in my favor. The court hearings, the legal battles, the endless nights of preparing and defending, everything led to this moment. Lisa's lies had been exposed for what they were: desperate attempts to cling to her illusion of control. Her manipulations, her stories about losing everything, were all built on a foundation of deceit. And now the truth was out in the open. The judge looked through the evidence, listened to both sides, and I could see the moment she made her decision. My lawyer whispered to me, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because I had fought tooth and nail, and I knew I'd come out on top. Sadness because it had cost so much: my trust, my peace of mind, years of my life wasted on this betrayal. But I also felt a sense of closure. This chapter was ending and I could finally start healing. Lisa's reaction was predictably dramatic. She burst into tears, screaming that she was the victim, that I had ruined her life. But her tears rang hollow. The court dismissed her claims about losing everything and awarded me full ownership of the house, the savings, and custody of the children if we had any. She was left with nothing but her lies and her empty accusations. Her lawyer tried to appeal, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge wasn't buying her story anymore. In the days that followed, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I finally had my life back, but I also knew I'd carry the scars of this betrayal forever. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, but I learned a lot about myself, about what to look out for, and about the importance of honesty and integrity. I realized that I had been blind for too long, but that I was stronger than I thought. I had survived, and I had fought for what was rightfully mine. I also took time to reflect on what this experience had taught me about people and relationships. Lisa wasn't just a cheat. She was a master manipulator who lied her way through life. Her betrayal was a wake-up call, one that made me realize I needed to be more cautious, more guarded, but also more trusting in myself. I learned that integrity matters and that sometimes you have to fight hard to protect what's yours, your home, your savings, your dignity. Looking back, I'm grateful I didn't give up. I'm proud of myself for standing firm, for not letting her lies destroy me. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I'm stronger now. I've learned that betrayal can come from those you trust most, but it's how you respond that defines you. I've chosen to move forward, to rebuild my life from the ground up, and to remember that honesty and resilience are the best defenses against those who wish to deceive and manipulate. This experience has changed me, no doubt about it, but it's also made me more aware, more prepared to face whatever comes next. I don't hold any bitterness or hatred anymore, just a quiet determination to never let someone like Lisa get the better of me again. I've fought hard for my peace and I've won. That's all that matters now. I finally have my life, my house, and my dignity back, and I'm never letting go of that.